Blackberry Nib is a rose bred by Rob Summerfield and introduced in New Zealand in 1996. The rose itself gets to be approximately 60 centimeters tall and about 40 centimeters wide. It is, in other words, a very compact growing rose with a very beautiful shape. Now, it is hardy down to USDA Zone 6B, and I have personally had this rose survive a winter that went down to about minus 22 Celsius. The rose itself is a mixture between Deep Secret and Old Port in the parentage, and this parentage will be very important to understand the rose itself and the unique quirks that are in this rose. Now, from Deep Secret, which is a very red rose, you inherit this very strong damask and gallica mix of fragrance the rose can sometimes exhibit. And also from the Old Port rose, you have this very purple color trying to shine through. And Old Port, on the other hand, has another rose in it called Stephen's Big Purple or Big Purple. And that rose often sometimes have a bit of a red wine scent to it. So you have two lineages that kind of clash in this rose. And why I'm explaining this to you will make sense in just a second. Now, what happens is the more towards sun you place this rose, the more red it gets. And it gets mainly red in the inner center of the rose, while the outer edges are purple. And the more towards shade you place it, the more very, very deep purple it gets. So in other words, what trait shines through, the red or the purple trait, kind of depends on the sunlight position of it. It will always be very purple, but expect it to turn a little bit more magenta purple, where you have a bit of that red in it if you place it in full sunlight. And as I said before, it happens mainly at the center of the rose. Now, I also said that there was some Deep Secret in this rose, and you can see that in the foliage. In the foliage, you have the same kind of silver hue to it. You also have on Deep Secret when you look at the leaves of Deep Secret. And when I say Deep Secret here, I mean the one from 1973, not the new version. Made by Tantal. So you're starting to see here that there's a lot of different traits from the two parentage lines that are kind of like joining up here in this rose. And that's also why this rose has been very difficult for me to really get a review done on, because this rose can behave in two different ways. It can give you an 8 out of 10 very strong red wine fragrance with a bit of red berry, or it can give you a very decent, very powerful 8.5 to 9 damask and gallica mix it gets from Deep Secret. And when does it decide to give one or the other? To be honest with you, I have found no good way to really determine it. I've noticed that I tend to get Old Port scent, the more Stephen's Big Purple, this red wine scent. I tend to get that when the rose has been standing in a very dry spot and hasn't had a lot of water. While in the more mild, moderate summers I've had the last 4 to 5 years, the rose has been giving me more of the fragrance that's more closer to Deep Secret. And it's kind of like the color. This rose is not completely stable either in the color or in the fragrance of it. That said, it will always provide you a powerful fragrance. It is just hard to say if that fragrance will come from the Deep Secret lineage or if it will come from the Old Port lineage. And that is a difficult thing for me to really explain, but that is kind of how I would explain this rose. And it is also why this has been one of the reviews that has been sitting around forever for me to do, because I think this review has been in process since the 27th of June or something like that. And it was because I had a very old Blackberry nib I bought here in Denmark like 5 to 6 years ago from a Danish plant nursery. And then I had 2 new black nibs. I bought to have 3 in total and plant together. And I bought those 2 new Blackberry nibs from the Netherlands, from this place called Two in Centrum Lotum. And these young roses behaved a lot different from the old rose. And I was kind of curious, like, what is going on here? Because primarily through the winter months, you heard me explain from the standpoint I had of the old rose. And the old rose was doing very well, very scented, and I had no experience of it ever turning into the different scent. But as my roses have been more stressed this year, I have noticed that this rose can actually take on a bit of a different nature, where you get more of that red wine note instead of that powerful damask and gallica scent. I'll still always continue to grow this rose because I really like when it hits that powerful scent. And I really like the deep color of it. I like the compact nature of it. I like the size of it. But I have also realized that this rose is not always the most stable rose in what it gives you. That said, I'm completely fine with whatever it gives me of the two. I can just see that one part of it comes from one parent plant and the other part of it comes from another parent plant, and what shines through at different times seems to be impacted a little by the environment it is standing in. And this is so strange to me because I also did a review of another rose that Deep Secret was a parent to, and that rose was Velvet Fragrance. And on Velvet Fragrance you have kind of the same thing. Sometimes the blooms get frilled edges, sometimes they don't. So I don't know what it is, but sometimes when Deep Secret is the parentage of a rose, it doesn't always behave in a very dominant way. It sometimes can almost go completely like it is hitting pause, and you're like, what is happening? So Deep Secret sometimes seems a bit more unstable in the way it passes on its genes to some of these other roses, but I really like the fragrance that comes from Deep Secret. So yeah, guys, how to sum up this rose? Well, there are some things you should be aware of. In general, this rose is very healthy, but I wouldn't place it where you have companion plants growing into it, because I have noticed if you allow moisture to trap around it, you can get black spot on the lower leaves. And that is what has happened for me in this picture. I've let some lambs here, some Stachys byzantium, grow into one of my Blackberry nib, and as a result I got a bit of black spot on it. But in general I have had very little issues with these plants when it comes to health. And I honestly can't mention any plant I really think could replace it. Like if you're thinking about your options here for a very compact purple plant, you have something like Heidi Klum, but Heidi Klum is in my opinion terrible on health and even less fragrant. Then you have something like Fur-Elise. Fur-Elise is also compact, but it has nearly no fragrance, and even though it is healthy. So in my world, this rose is still the best of the more compact purple roses you can use in the foreground of your rose bed. And I haven't been able to find anything that is better than this rose when it comes to those purple roses. And I guess sometimes I'm just walking past this rose to scent it, and I'm like, what is it scented of today? And sometimes it gives me that red wine fragrance, and other times it gives me the more powerful Deep Secret fragrance. And yeah, I don't know what it is with purple roses. Purple roses seem much more unstable sometimes in the fragrance, because Goethe is kind of the same also, where the fragrance note can vary a bit, and also something like Laudatio can also vary a bit in fragrance. So sometimes I don't know what it is with the purple roses in my garden. They seem to be a mystery. Every time I put my nose to them, they're a bit of a mystery. And it's not like a bad mystery because they're always extremely fragrant. You just don't really know what fragrance note you're going to always get. You just know that it is within a spectrum for each rose. For example, with Goethe, as I often explain, it tends to give me tea and raspberry scent and notes like that. First in the season, when it makes these large tea hybrid flowers. And then towards the later part of the season, it tends to turn more into this grandiflora blooming kind of rose. And it tends to give me a bit more citrus in the scent. So that one is a weird one too, and kind of also with Rhodesio, where you have that aniseed right when the bloom begins, and then it turns towards a more floral honey note as it fully opens. So I don't know what it is with the purple roses, but sometimes they seem a bit more unstable on fragrance to me than many of the other colors. But you can always be sure they give you a powerful fragrance. It is just a bit of a mystery sometimes what that fragrance is. And with Blackberry Nib, you will probably experience that you can get a very powerful fragrance just like Deep Secret. And then you can get a fragrance that's kind of like a berry wine dominated, kind of like what you can expect from something like Soul Rose and also Sophia Louise and a lot of these other red roses. So I really like this rose. But as I said, if you place it in full sun, expect it to turn more magenta. If you place it in a full shade, expect it to turn the most beautiful, deep kind of purple that you can experience in a rose. And it is a pretty rose. And I think I'll end it here. And what else can I say about it? I think I've said everything, really. I've nearly gone into a PhD on this rose and really noticed all its habits, but these are the habits on this rose as I see them. But take care out there, guys.